Welcome back to the deep dive. We're diving deep once more into the compelling and often confounding world of Dostoyevsky's The Brothers Karamazov.
Absolutely. And if you were with us last time, we hit a real peak of drama.
We did. Dmitry Karamazov has just been apprehended by the authorities, right there in Mokroy, amidst all that chaos.
Yeah, total cliffhanger. And the immediate question is, how did we get here? How did the police zero in on Dmitry so fast after everything that had been going on?
And that's exactly the puzzle we're tackling in this deep dive. We're using a source, a really detailed reading and analysis from a literary channel. It just meticulously walks through this crucial period.
Right. Taking us hour by hour almost.
Exactly. So our mission is to unpack that, confusing sequence of events, piece together the timeline from different angles, see how the key characters reacted in those first moments, and we're sticking strictly to the info and interpretations in the specific analysis.
Think of it like arriving at the scene right after a bomb goes off, but the dust hasn't settled yet. We're looking at those raw, immediate reactions, the first clues, and how everything just seemed to point one way for the people trying to make sense of it all. It's really a study in how suspicion builds up under pressure.
Totally. We'll be seeing this single night from multiple viewpoints, how those critical hours unfolded for different people, leading to the discovery of Fyodor Pavlovich's death and, well, Dmitry's arrest.
And you should expect twists. Some unexpected human behavior, flawed reactions under stress, and just the sheer weight of circumstantial evidence piling up.
It's a stark look at the aftermath of tragedy, isn't it? How quickly facts or perceived facts can get woven into a story that seems convincing, even if it might be flawed.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Dmitry's in custody. How did the police get to him so quickly? Our source material backs things up a bit, showing the chain reaction that led them straight to Mokroy, ready to arrest him.
Right. And the thread really starts with a character we've already seen interacting with Dmitry.
Perkton.
The analysis reminds us, importantly, about their earlier dealings that day. Perkotin lending Dmitry money.
The pistol as collateral.
Exactly. The pistol, changing hands, even sharing drinks. This background is crucial for understanding why Perkotin gets drawn back into it later that night.
Yeah, and maybe the most vital piece. Perkotin saw Dmitry just before he left for Mokroye, saw him in that incredibly agitated state.
Covered in blood, can't forget that detail.
No, clutching the pistol he'd just redeemed, talking wildly, erratically about killing someone. Maybe himself, maybe someone else. Perkotin saw Dmitry at his absolute edge.
And according to this reading we're following, that encounter it really shook Perkotin. He went home, tried to sleep, couldn't.
Just this nagging feeling.
Yeah, a strange unease, a kind of dread. He knew Dmitry was capable of something rash, something violent in that state. It stuck with him.
So the analysis describes him around 11 p.m., just unable to rest. He feels he has to do something about this anxiety. Gets up, starts walking, maybe not even sure where he's going at first.
Probably not. Just restless energy, mounting concern. But eventually his steps lead him towards a place linked to Dmitry, Grushenka's house in town. Not the inn at Mokroy, her actual residence.
Right, and the scene there when he arrives, it adds another layer to the suspicion.
It really does. He gets there around 11 p.m., starts banging on the door, loudly, aggressively. Understandably, Grushenka's maid, Fenya, she's terrified by this.
Who wouldn't be? Late night, forceful knocking.
Fenya sends the doorman to check. The doorman knows Perkotin, lets him in, and Perkotin immediately starts grilling Fenya about Dmitry. You can tell he's driven by that earlier worry.
And Fenya's story, it basically confirms his worst fears, doesn't it?
Completely. She says, yes, Dmitry was here earlier, in a terrible state, covered in blood, holding a pistol. She describes him as seeming utterly crazy, consumed by this frenzy. She even tells Perkotin how she pleaded with him, begged him not to hurt Grushenka or her Polish lover. It paints this picture of Dmitry being totally volatile, dangerous.
So Perkotin gets confirmation. Dmitry was disturbed, potentially violent. But the analysis points out this doesn't calm him down. It actually makes things worse, shifts his focus.
Right, because now he connects Fenya's story and the blood in the pistol to something else he knows about Dmitry from earlier that day.
The money.
Exactly. This is where his mind makes that critical, damning leap. He remembers just hours before, Dmitry was so broke he had to pawn that pistol to him, Perkotin, for what, 15, 16 rubles?
Pocket change, basically. He was desperate.
Desperate. But now Fenya confirms he was here, bloody. And Perkotin knows that later that night, Dmitry showed up in Mokroy with a huge sum, 3,000 rubles.
So the question hangs in the air. Where did that money come from?
Precisely. Berkotin's thought process, as laid out in the source, is pretty clear. How does a man go from pawning a pistol for 16 rubles to having 3,000 just hours later?
Especially when everyone in town knows about the massive fight between Dmitri and his father, Fyodor Pavlovich.
And it's specifically about Grushenka and about money Dmitri felt his father owed him.
So Perkotin connects the dots. Dmitri's desperation for cash, his violent state earlier, the blood Fenya saw, the sudden 3,000 rubles, the known hatred for his father.
The conclusion seems inescapable to Berkotin. Dmitri must have killed his father, Fyodor Pavlovich, and stolen the 3,000 rubles.
This suspicion becomes so strong that he feels compelled, even though it's late, like 11:30 p.m. now, to go to Fyodor's house,
Yeah.
to the potential crime scene,
Yeah.
to check.
But he doesn't go. And this is where the source analysis points out this really fascinating, almost darkly comic human detail. He hesitates.
Why? What stops him?
Well, the source describes Perkotin as being intensely image-conscious. He's worried. What if he goes banging on Fyodor's door this late and Fyodor is perfectly fine?
Oh, the embarrassment.
Exactly. His fear, according to the analysis, is that Fyodor would just ridicule him mercilessly. Tell everyone in town how Perkotin came creeping around in the middle of the night asking if he was dead yet.
The fear of looking foolish, of damaging his reputation, actually stops him from investigating a potential murder.
It seems so. That personal pride, that concern for social standing, apparently overrides the urgency of the situation. It's a really sharp psychological insight from the source's interpretation. Vanity getting in the way of finding the truth or even helping.
It makes you pause, right? Why put that detail in? What's Dostoyevsky saying about Perkotin, or maybe just about people in general? How self-interest or social anxiety can just paralyze you even when something truly terrible might have happened.
It's uncomfortable. It shows how ego can really warp your priorities.
So, blocked by his own vanity from going to Fyodor's, Perkotin chooses another route.
Yeah, he decides to go to Matka Koklov's house instead, where Katerina Ivanovna is also staying.
It's still very late, 11:30 p.m., maybe closer to midnight now. And Madame Koklakov, as the source reminds us, she's proud, snobbish. Not someone who just sees anyone, especially unannounced at this hour.
Perkotin knows this, so he uses a tactic. He tells the doorman to announce him as a government officer.
Pulling rank he doesn't have.
He figures that's the only way she'll bite. And initially, she reacts just as you'd expect. Tells the doorman to send him away, complains about being bothered.
But Perkotin pushes back.
He does. The source says he's forceful, insists it's a very urgent matter, maybe even hints it won't be good for her if she refuses. A slight intimidation tactic.
And it works.
It works. Maybe she senses an opportunity. Maybe she's just intrigued by the government officer title. She changes her mind and agrees to see him.
So he gets in. What does he tell her?
He lays it out pretty clearly. He tells her he thinks Fyodor Pavlovich has been murdered, and he strongly suspects Dmitri did it. He explains about the blood, the pistol, the sudden money.
And Koklakov. Does she have useful information?
She does, and it seems to nail down a key part of Perkotin's theory. She confirms that Dmitri did come to her house earlier that night, and he specifically asked her for 3,000 rubles.
But did she give it to him?
She claims she absolutely refused him the money.
Okay, so for Perkotin, this clicks perfectly, right? Dmitri needed 3,000, asked Koklakov, got turned down.
Yeah.
Therefore, the money must have come from Fyodor. And given the blood, it must have been violent.
Exactly. It totally solidifies Perkotin's suspicion in his own mind.
But then Koklakov adds something else, something weird.
Very weird. The source analysis highlights this. She claims that when she refused Dmitri the money, he reacted by spitting right in her face.
Spitting? Seriously, did that actually happen?
According to the source analysis, absolutely not. It's a complete fabrication on her part. Dmitri did not spit on her.
So why lie? Why make that up? What's going on with her?
Good questions. The source suggests a few possibilities. Maybe she just likes adding drama, making up stories. Maybe she was bored, saw this as excitement. Or maybe trying to make herself seem more important, more wronged in the whole affair. And there's another layer the source mentions. She apparently starts finding Perkotin, the government officer, kind of handsome and useful during this talk. Gets distracted.
Oh, for goodness sake. So she starts rambling about town gossip instead of focusing on a potential murder.
Seems like it. Her attention drifts completely. It's another example, like Perkotin's vanity, of a character just getting lost in their own world, their own ego, attractions, petty dramas, even when faced with something incredibly serious. Self-absorption blinding them.
It's quite the portrait Dostoyevsky paints.
It is. So Perkotin, he's got what he came for, confirmation. Dmitri asked for the 3,000 and didn't get it from her. He finds it hard to get away from her rambling and her made-up stories, but he manages to leave, now more convinced than ever that Dmitri killed his father for the money.
Okay, so Perkotin is off, following his suspicions. But while all this is happening, the murder itself has already been discovered by someone else entirely.
Exactly. The analysis shifts perspective now
Okay.
to Grigory and his wife, Marfa Ignatievna. And Grigory, you'll remember, he's the old, loyal servant at Fyodor's. Basically raised the Karamazov boys.
Right. What's their story of that night?
Marfa wakes up feeling unwell, maybe took some medicine, feeling groggy, and she hears sounds from the next room, Smerdyakov.
Ah, Smerdyakov.
He's having one of his terrible epileptic fits, screaming. Marfa sees him on the floor, shaking, foaming at the mouth. The analysis notes her immediate concern because she helped raise him too.
A chaotic scene already.
And then she realizes her husband, Grigory, isn't in bed with her. He's not there.
Where is he?
She hears moaning, not inside but outside, from the garden. She rushes out and finds him, lying there, covered in blood.
Oh no! How did that happen? The analysis explains this, right? It happened earlier.
Yes, the source gives us the flashback. This actually went down earlier in the night, before Perkotin even started his rounds. It was when Dmitri was trying to escape Fyodor's property, climbing back over the garden wall after trying to see Grushenka.
Grigory caught him.
Yes, Grigory was keeping watch, saw Dmitri scaling the wall, and confronted him, grabbed his leg, trying to stop him.
And Dmitri reacted?
Violently, instinctively. Kicked Grigory in the head or face, then hit him hard on the head with something heavy he'd picked up. The analysis identifies it as that brass pestle for grinding spices. Knocked Grigory out cold, left him bleeding in the garden.
So that's what Marfa finds. Her husband, unconscious, bleeding.
Devastating. She helps him as best she can, tends to the wound, but she knows she needs help. The reality hits her.
Where can she go?
She sees a light on in Fyodor's room, notices the main gate to the property is open, probably left open by Dmitri. She thinks maybe she can get help from Fyodor.
So she goes to his window.
And looks in. And that's when she sees it. The horror. Fyodor's body. Lifeless. Clear head wound. Already cold. Been dead a while.
My God, imagine that moment for her. Husband injured, master murdered, Smerdyakov having a fit. Total nightmare. Who does she turn to?
Desperation. She runs to the neighbors. The source mentions 2 women and a man gets them, brings them back. Their first thought is Grigory. They help clean and bandage his wound.
But Grigory, even injured, he knows what needs to be done.
He does. He tells Marfa very clearly she has to go. Go tell the inspector about the murder. Now.
So Marfa, despite the trauma, the late hour, she goes, finds the inspector's house, Mikhail Makarovich.
And she arrives to find a party.
Yeah, quite the scene. A party in full swing, judges, lawyers, local officials, all there.
And Marfa bursts in. Late at night, hysterical, shouting that there's been a murder. The party just stops dead. Everyone turns to her.
And she tells them everything. Fyodor's death, Grigory's injury.
The whole terrible story. And that's how the authorities first find out. Directly from Marfa, based on her discovery and Grigory's injury. It happens before Perkotin gets there.
Which brings us back to Perkotin arriving at the inspector's house.
Right, maybe 5 minutes after Marfa finishes her account.
And the inspector tells him, we know, Fyodor's dead, and we think it was Dmitri. Because of what Marfa just told them about Grigory being attacked by Dmitri.
Exactly. So Perkotin's arrival, with his own story, it just lands as powerful confirmation for them. He adds his pieces. The pawned pistol, Dmitri returning bloody with 3,000 rubles, the earlier threats against his father, Dmitri's manic state.
It all seems to fit perfectly into the narrative Marfa just provided. Dmitri needed money, was desperate, violent, seen bloody, attacked Grigory while escaping. It paints a very convincing picture for the police.
Overwhelmingly convincing from their point of view at that moment.
So, with Marfa's account plus Perkotin's corroboration, the authorities, inspector, magistrate, the judges, and lawyers from the party, they immediately form a team and head straight to Fyodor's house, to the crime scene.
And there, they find Fyodor's body, confirm the head wound Marfa reported, but they find something else, something Marfa hadn't mentioned.
What's that?
Near the body, on a table, there's an empty envelope.
An empty envelope.
Addressed clearly. To my beloved Grushenka from Fyodor, and written on it, 3,000 rubles.
Oh, the exact amount Dmitri suddenly had, and intended for Grushenka.
Precisely. The police make the immediate deduction. The 3,000 rubles Fyodor meant for Grushenka have been stolen.
And that just cements the case against Dmitri in their minds, doesn't it? Motive, money for Grushenka, opportunity, he was there, the missing money matching the sum he suddenly possessed.
It tightens the net considerably. Then they question Grigory again, who's conscious now, though injured.
And Grigori confirms it was Dmitri who hit him.
Yes. He confirms Dmitri attacked him on the head, specifically with a pestle.
Do they find the weapon?
They do. They search the garden near where Grigori fell and find it the brass or metal pestle.
Okay, so they have Grigori's testimony, the weapon.
And then the final piece, for them. They examine the wound on Fyodor's head more closely, and the analysis notes it appears consistent with the weapon found. Same type of blunt force trauma, same size and shape as could be made by that pestle.
The pestle used on Grigori.
The very same. So the police theory solidifies instantly. Dmitri killed Fyodor with the pestle, stole the 3,000, was seen by Grigori climbing the wall, attacked Grigori with the same weapon to silence him or escape, and fled to Mokroe.
It all lines up so neatly from their perspective. Circumstantial evidence, witness accounts from Marfa and Perkotin, the physical evidence of the envelope and pestle, the matching wounds, Dmitri's known character.
It feels like an open and shut case to them at this point, even though, as the analysis implicitly points out, nobody actually saw Dmitri hit Fyodor. But Grigori, seeing him escape and being attacked with that specific weapon, seems to bridge the gap for the authorities.
It shows how quickly an interpretation can harden into accepted fact, doesn't it? Especially when the pieces seem to fit so well.
Absolutely. Grigori's testimony about the attack on him becomes the crucial link that seems to prove Dmitri's presence and violence at the scene of the murder itself.
So convinced they have their man, the authorities, police, magistrate, judge, lawyer, they travel to Mokroe.
To the guest house where Dmitri is carousing with Grushenka.
And that's where they find him and arrest him, bringing us full circle to where we started.
But the drama doesn't stop with the arrest. Grushenka's reaction is intense.
Understatement. When they tell her Dmitri's arrested for murdering his father for 3,000 rubles, how does she respond?
With this incredibly passionate defense. The source describes her falling to her knees, pleading with the inspector, but not just saying Dmitri's innocent.
What then?
She claims she's the guilty one. "I am the real culprit," she cries out.
She says she did it.
No, her reasoning is that Dmitri did whatever he did out of love for her, that he needed the 3,000 rubles to win her, so his love for her drove him to it. Therefore, she's responsible.
Wow, that's quite a leap, but shows her devotion.
Immense devotion. She declares total self-sacrifice, tells the inspector to punish her, let Dmitri go, vows to follow him anywhere. Siberia, the gallows, whatever it takes.
How does the inspector react to this?
Initially, with anger, he blames her directly. "It's because of you he did this," he shouts at her. Very. But the lawyers and judges step in, stop him from talking to her like that. Grushenka's already distraught, and this just makes her break down completely, crying uncontrollably.
And Dmitri sees all this.
He does, and the source says he's visibly moved, tears in his eyes, watching her passionate defense and distress.
What happens then?
Despite being held by police, he manages to move towards her. They end up embracing on the floor, clinging to each other like it's the last time.
God, that's heart-wrenching.
And Grushenka, through her tears, keeps repeating her promise. "You are not alone, Dmitri. I am with you. I will go to the scaffold with you. I will go to Siberia with you. I will be there at the gallows with you."
And the police just pull them apart.
They have to. The analysis paints this tragic picture. Both on the floor, being dragged away, desperately reaching for each other, as Grushenka keeps crying his name, repeating her vows. Then they're taken to separate rooms for interrogation.
So Dmitri's interrogation begins. How does that go?
He's brought into a room, sits at a table across from the judge and lawyers. The lawyer starts, polite tone, but very firm, lays out the charge, formally accused of murdering his father.
Does he present the evidence?
He outlines their case, says it's clear-cut based on Grigori's testimony about the head wound, all the other facts they've gathered, Perkotin, Kokolakov, the envelope, the pestle, Dmitri's known history. He urges Dmitri to confess.
And Dmitri's reaction?
Here's something really surprising. As the lawyer recounts Grigori's testimony, Dmitri latches onto one specific detail. The fact that Grigori is alive.
He didn't know.
Apparently not for certain. And the source analysis really emphasizes his reaction. It's not defiance, not anger, but immense, overwhelming relief.
Relief. Why?
Because he genuinely thought he might have killed Grigori with that blow from the pestle. He knew he'd hit him hard in the heat of the moment, trying to escape. The thought of having killed the old servant who'd basically raised him was weighing incredibly heavily on him.
So hearing Grigori survived is a huge weight off his shoulders.
Huge. The analysis quotes him saying something like, "Oh, I'm saved. I didn't kill Grigori. He survived." It's profound relief.
That's significant, isn't it? Facing a murder charge for his father, his first powerful emotion is relief about not having killed Grigori.
It's very significant. What does it tell us about him? The source uses this to suggest that maybe, despite everything, there was a line Dmitri deeply regretted crossing, seriously harming the man who raised him. His guilt seems focused on the act he knows he committed, hitting Grigori.
Does it make him seem less likely to have killed his father? Or is it just a deflection?
The analysis presents it as a complex insight into his character. If he feels that much guilt and relief over injuring Grigori accidentally, does that fit the profile of someone who could coldly murder his father? It complicates the simple narrative the police have built.
So after this moment of relief, how does he defend himself against the main charge?
He's surprisingly honest about his feelings for Fyodor. He admits it point blank. I hated my father, he tells the lawyer. I hated his face. This is true.
No attempt to hide the animosity.
None. He acknowledges everyone knew about it, confirms he'd recently beaten his father. He even admits that, yes, when drunk, he'd often said terrible things and he wanted to kill him, hated his face. He owns up to all the talk.
Right.
But he insists, absolutely denies the act itself. But lawyer, I did not do it, he states firmly. This is a false accusation. I did not do it.
What about hitting Grigori? Does he explain that?
He admits it, yes, but says it wasn't intentional, not attempted murder. It was a reaction. Grigori grabbed his leg while he was desperately trying to get over the wall. A spontaneous blow.
And he feels bad about that part.
Deeply remorseful.
Yeah.
He brings up again how Grigori bathed him as a child, raised him. He expresses real pain over hitting him with the pestle, apologizes for that act, repeats his relief. Grigori's alive. His guilt is laser-focused on Grigori.
But for Fyodor's murder, complete denial.
Complete denial. He insists the accusation is false, even though he knows how bad things look, even with his own admissions about hatred and threats.
How does the lawyer respond?
Points out the evidence, naturally. Grigori's testimony, the pestle, the money, his history, all points to him. But Dmitri just maintains the evidence is wrong, misleading. It's not true, he keeps saying. This is wrong.
Then there's another interruption.
A powerful one. While they're questioning Dmitri, they hear Grushenka screaming his name from the next room. Dmitri.
Oh no. How does he react?
Instantly. Jumps up, wants to go to her immediately, clearly distressed by her cries. And she's struggling too, trying to get to him.
Another struggle with the police.
Yes. The analysis describes Dmitri showing incredible strength, pushing officers away, but they eventually restrain him again. Grushenka's also held back.
That image again.
Yeah, the source emphasizes it. Both on the floor, separated by police, reaching for each other. Grushenka crying, shouting his name, repeating her vows to stay with him, go with him anywhere. Just raw emotion.
They eventually get him back to the interrogation.
Yes. He's brought back, visibly shaken now, crying, full of sadness.
But then something changes with the inspector, Mikhail Magarovich.
A really notable shift. Remember how angry he was at Grushenka earlier?
Wow.
Blaming her?
Yes.
Now, his whole tone towards Dmitri becomes kind, compassionate even.
Really? What does he say?
He actually apologizes to Dmitri about Grushenka. I was wrong about Grushenka, he tells him. A direct retraction of his earlier judgment.
That's quite something.
He goes on to say he now sees she's a very good lady, understands how deeply and truly she loves Dmitri. It's meant to reassure Dmitri.
Does he say anything about her safety? Dmitri must be worried sick about her.
He does. He tells Dmitri she's been moved to the basement, somewhere quieter, less disturbing for her. He emphasizes repeatedly she is safe. And he promises Dmitri that he, the inspector, will personally be her guardian, give her full protection. He knows Dmitri's worried, and he guarantees nothing will happen to her under his watch.
How does Dmitri take this unexpected kindness?
With immense gratitude. He thanks the inspector over and over, clearly moved. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You were very kind, he says.
That must lift a huge weight, knowing Grushenka's okay.
A definite mental relief, the source suggests. With that immediate anxiety eased, his focus snaps back to the interrogation.
Okay, ready to face it now.
Ready. But with renewed insistence on his innocence. He tells the lawyers basically, okay, let's do this, but let's do it fast, because there's nothing to this case. I didn't do it.
He maintains that stance strongly.
Very strongly. This is a clear-cut case. I didn't do it. Talk to the point. Ask your questions quickly and free me from here, because I am innocent. I am innocent. He's ready to cooperate, but only to prove he's not guilty of the murder.
So this deep dive really ends right at that crucial point. The authorities are convinced they have their man, based on this web of evidence and testimony.
A very compelling web from their standpoint.
But Dmitri, while admitting so much the hatred, the threats, hitting Grigory, he just adamantly denies killing his father.
We've traced that whole chaotic night, haven't we, through Prokotin's anxious, slightly vain investigation.
Marfa and Grigory's trauma.
The police piecing together the evidence so quickly.
And then Dmitri's arrest, Grushenka's incredible reaction, and his own interrogation. That mix of admissions and denials.
And those character moments the source highlighted Prokotin's image issues, Koklikov's bizarre fabrications.
Marfa's loyalty, Grushenka's fierce love, Dmitri's strange relief about Grigory.
It really shows the messiness of it all, doesn't it? How suspicion builds, how evidence gets interpreted, how people act under extreme stress, sometimes selfishly, sometimes nobly. Makes you think about truth versus perception. How easy it is to build a story that fits.
Absolutely. Why does pride stop someone? Why does love inspire such sacrifice?
And it leaves us hanging with that core tension. The authorities seem sure. Dmitri seems equally sure he didn't kill Fyodor, despite everything else.
So here's the thought to leave you with, based only on what this analysis has presented. Considering all the evidence, Dmitri's past, his arrest, but specifically focusing on that intense, immediate relief he felt when he heard Grigory survived. What does that reaction suggest to you? Does it make him seem more or less capable of the actual patricide? Does it ring true, that distinction he makes between hitting Grigory and killing his father?
It's definitely something to chew on as the investigation unfolds. What details stand out most as you try to make sense of this incredibly complex picture?
A lot to process. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into such a critical turning point in the brothers Karamazov.